It's nearly 1 year to the day since Joe Biden's inauguration, and thus far, his time wandering around the White House has been a disaster on all fronts. He failed to crush the virus, which he was never going to do, but he promised it. But he is crushing in-person learning for kids. The economy is tanking and inflation is soaring. The supply chain is worse than ever. Bare shelves Biden? It's a real thing. Just go to your local grocery store right after the show. Our southern border, wide open. And crime, as you know, is out of control. So far, the only thing Joe Biden has built back better is the Taliban. So it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that Team Biden would like a chance to forget this whole last year and just start over fresh. Here's their solution. Only D.C. could cook up this solution. Joe 2.0. According to NBC, consider the source, senior administration officials are looking to launch a public reset and rebrand of Joe Biden, saying, quote, there is a recognition to change the dynamic. What a quote. You think? Well, let's be honest. Can you really teach an old dog new tricks? Especially when that dog has been in politics for 47 years. And can he learn those tricks before the red wave wipes out his majority after the midterms? Here now, Fox News senior political analyst and smart dude, Brit Hume. Brit, thanks so much for being here. Joe 2.0, your reaction to that attempt?
Well, I'm not expecting a full reset anytime soon, Pete. I think what we're going to hear tomorrow in the president's news conference is an effort on his part to cite the things the administration has indeed achieved. I mean, they had a $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill. He got that passed. He had the infrastructure bill, which was another sizable wad of spending. That was done on a bipartisan basis. He can certainly point to that. Those two things are real and not insignificant. His problem, I think, of course, is that all these matters that relate to COVID have not ended up ending COVID, which he promised to do, as you pointed out. And on the economic side, the fact that the economy is growing, and it certainly has been and continues to, stock market up and all the rest of it, much of that is obscured by the fact that every single American is feeling the effects of inflation, which has spurted forward in a way we haven't seen in many, many years indeed. Mm-hmm. So he's got a problem, but he does have some things he can point to, and I think we'll hear more about what he has done than promises to do better on what he hasn't done. And it'll be interesting to see if he wants to make any kind of a turn away from his allegiance to his party's left that has so dominated the first year in office.
That's an interesting point. I get my assessment, Britain, and help me out. Let me know if you think this could work or is conceivable. He probably can't move away from his marriage with the far left. That's happened. He's in on that. But what if, is there any chance that a Joe 2.0 would say, you know what? We're turning the corner on COVID a little bit here. We're gonna move into an environment where we recognize natural immunity, where we don't do mandates, where we don't lock down, where we get kids back into school, where we recognize we're gonna have to live with this. Maybe he wouldn't even have to admit he's wrong. He would just have to say we're entering a new phase, at which point people can breathe again a little bit. Business goes back to normal. Life goes back to normal. People might like that heading into a midterm.
Well, I think people might indeed like that. But remember, for him to say the things that you just outlined would be for him to contradict much of the policies that he has adopted, and many of which are still in place. It seems to me what he would need to do would be to announce a whole set of policy changes in which he'd be overruling people like Dr. Fauci and his CDC director and so on. And I think that'd be a hard move for him to make at this time. This kind of thing, though, Pete, has been done. I mean, Bill Clinton had a very rough start and lost control of Congress, lost control of the House of Representatives for the first time in decades in the election in 1992. 1994. That was a huge deal, and he did a real shift at that time, and he became the more moderate Bill Clinton, who'd been the governor of Arkansas, rather than the lefty one we'd seen for his first year in office. But that was only after a big washout at the polls, whose message was unmistakable. I suspect that many in the Biden administration are still clinging to the hope that they can turn things around in his second year and avoid that kind of calamity that Clinton faced in 1994.
Interesting, very interesting point. I wonder if maybe we'll hear Joe Biden utter those words, the era of big government is over. I don't feel like we will, but that would be an interesting Joe 2.0 echoing Bill Clinton. Brit Hume, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Wise words.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.